a series of virtual sessions initiated by Takshla Educational Society to further ideas that foster learning, self-expression, and ingenuity in order to facilitate better understanding of our world and its concerns. On this propitious day, I extend my warm greetings to the receptive audience virtually present with us on this amazing rostrum. I cordially wish our guests of honor, the illustrious judges, acclaimed invitees, and of course, our very intelligent participants and students. It is indeed a delight to be welcoming you all to this momentous occasion, intended to channelize and showcase the verve our nascent yet resolute young orators possess. At DPS, we always try to generate opportunities to create a conducive atmosphere for our students to hone their finesse and exhibit their talent. Takshila Open Mic, a battle of oratory skills, is an endeavor in the same direction. Today, on the final day of this three-day event, we are delighted to present the debate competition. Debate is a formal form of argument wherein the debaters try to influence the opinion of the audience in order to win them over to their point of view. Today, students of class 9 and 10 from Delhi Public School, Patna, Pune, Ludhiana, and Coimbatore will take center stage to propose and oppose the motion, "Criticism makes one strong." The participants will propagate diverse thoughts, themes, and perspectives. To judge these budding speakers, we have a panel of eminent personalities from the world of language and literature. We have here with us Ms. Rakhi Thakur, the learned principal of Angels Valley School, Rajpura. Ms. Thakur has worked in DCM School, Firozpur for 5 years and acted as CBSE district coordinator. She is a strong advocate of Mahatma Gandhi's idea of education, known as Nai Talim, and also evinces deep interest in Cobb's theory of experiential learning. With her on the panel is Dr. A. Hazel Verbina, the former head of the Department of English at Dr. G.R. Damodaran College of Science. She is also a Cambridge certified IELTS trainer and BC trainer, as well as language editor for Texla American University, and is currently engaged in online tutoring of Korean students. We also have amongst us Ms. Neeta Saxena, who is the principal of Europe Kids School at Pune. She is a dedicated educationist and zealous entrepreneur who also happens to be a faculty with the Art of Living organization. Dedicated to nurturing young minds and strengthening their wings to give them a leap start, she is also devoted to building and serving the society where people are stress-free, cheerful, and have a positive outlook on life. We also have another scholar here today, Ms. Priya Manish Kumar, who is an assistant professor in the Department of Mass Communications at St. Xavier's College of Management and Technology, Patna. She has founded Parnassus Academy of Language to teach English language skills to children and adults. She has also taught at St. Xavier's College at Kolkata, Kathmandu, and Ahmedabad. With great joy and immense exultation, I accord a genial welcome to all the meritorious judges. Before we get to have a good discernment of the rules of the debate competition, please let me enunciate that the order in which the teams will speak and who interjects which team has been decided through a draw of lots earlier. And the rules for the event are: each speaker for and against the motion will get 3 minutes to present his or her views. The interjector will get 1 minute to interject each speaker from a particular team, and both question and answer will have to be over within that minute. So, short, pithy questions from the interjectors and crisp answers from the respondents are encouraged. The respondents are expected not to ask any counter questions. So, we are now all set to debate on the floor of the House on the motion, "Criticism makes one strong." I invite the first speaker, code F01, to present views for the motion. Code F01.
Criticism is a mirror that shows you your true and ideal self. It makes you strong to achieve what you want to be. Don't trust a mirror that only tells you how wonderful you look. Good evening to the respectable jury and my fellow debaters. I, code F01, strongly support the motion, criticism makes one strong. I'm sure all of you know Walt Disney, but did you know that even his editor told him that he lacked imagination and creativity? But did Walt Disney give up? No. Instead, criticism showed him his future about what could happen to him and helped him to take corrective measures. And you can see where he is today. We can't even begin to imagine our childhood without Disney. Another great example is Kalidas. He couldn't pronounce a single word correctly. In fact, he received brutal criticism for that. But did Kalidas give up or feel weak? No, he went on to become one of the greatest poets of his time, and history is a witness to his masterpieces. Criticism affects performance. Never. Take a look at the Indian cricket team. With every single defeat, not only the media, but even common man shows ruthless criticism. But how has that ever affected the team? In fact, the present Indian cricket team is one of the strongest teams in the world today. The greatest threat to freedom is the absence of criticism. And opposition, no matter how many objections it raises, is a check on democracy. It strengthens the government and makes our nation strong. So why don't we like criticism then? The trouble is, my dear friends, that everyone loves to bask in insincere flattery. No one wants to face the winds of frank judgment. Why? Why are we so insecure? Remember, my friends, it is better to fall among crows than flatterers. For those devour only the dead, but these the living. Flattery will ruin you. Criticism makes us humble, tolerant, and a perfectionist. And this has been proved by Toyota, a car company. Each and every employee is to find faults in the manufacturing process to highlight every single loophole that may have been overlooked. And the result is perfection, my worthy opponent. Today, Toyota is one of the major car producing companies of the world. Criticism can do wonders. Have you ever seen a sculptor at work? He hammers the stone. Yes, you heard me right. He hammers ruthlessly to reveal the grandest version of what was before a mere stone. Even a diamond dazzles only and only when it is given sharp cuts. Mark my words, criticism is a tool that sharpens us, polishes us, and that's quite a fair deal. If you want to shine, it is imperative that you accept criticism. And of course, criticism will sound bitter because the truth is always bitter. And for all these reasons, the motion must stand. I rest my case here. Thank you.
Thank you. Now to interject F01, I invite interjector code I01. Code I01.
Good evening. I am code I01. My question is to code F01. Criticizing people on their cultural basis can bind that person with cultural chains and stop him from a bright future. Also, continuous criticism demotivates people. This will lead to increase in hesitation for that person to move forward in life. Then how can you say that criticism makes one strong?
My dear interjector, criticism is like pain in the human body. It calls attention to an unhealthy state of things. The wind blows out weak fires, but he makes the strong ones roar and flourish. As rightly said by Subramanya Bharati in his poem, Wind, the weak ones will crumble and perish, but the strong ones will flourish with criticism. After all, isn't it the competition of excellence in this world and the survival of the fittest, as rightly suggested by Charles Darwin? Our ability to look through and accept criticism indicates how much we have grown. And criticism does not just flag the weak points, but it improves your performance as a whole. Hence, I firmly believe that receiving criticism is an essential part of our progress, and indubitably, it makes us strong. Thank you.
Thank you. It's time for A01 to put forth the arguments against the motion. Code A01.
Good evening to the respectable jury and my fellow debaters. Today I, Code A01, strongly oppose the motion. Criticism makes one strong. Am I supposed to laugh at that? Firstly, I would like to tell my worthy opponent that this debate is not about positive criticism, it is about criticism as a whole. The Oxford Dictionary says that it is to indicate the faults of someone or something in a very disapproving and negative way. Then how does it make us strong? The truth is, it does exactly the opposite. It only weakens us and depresses us. Imagine the superstar Amitabh Bachchan was once rejected by the All India Radio for his baritone voice and has now been signed by Amazon paid millions for the exact same. But the problem with us is that we only look at the rosy picture of success and fail to notice the thorns. Amitabh Bachchan was quite depressed when he was rejected, and this depression was aggravated by the criticism he faced. While we see only success, we fail to see how it actually takes away our sleep and makes us bleed. We also have to remember that criticism is based on our perception. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you will be criticized anyway. You'll be damned if you do and damned if you don't." People commit suicide because of the unethical and immoral criticism. Research says that this leads to low self esteem, rivalry, and it is the birthplace of the many crimes committed, especially among teenagers. It is nothing but an envious tribute, lauded on you by your competitors out of jealousy, and it definitely does not make us strong. In fact, it makes us vindictive. Nowadays, criticism has found a new avatar in the form of online trolling and cyberbullying. People now have the guts to criticize you, provoke you, and anger you on an online platform. Recently, the Indian Idol participant Shanmukha Priya was trolled to such an extent that people commented that she was not singing but only screaming and shouting. My question to all of you is this making her strong? Is this helping her in any possible aspect? The author J.K. Rowling was rejected not once, not twice, but 12 times. She was criticized mercilessly. Tell me, how many are able to withstand such hardships? Does this mean that only the strong deserve to survive? Please note, while one J.K. Rowling was successful, the world lost 99 Rowlings only because of criticism. Believe me, this benefits only the strong. The weaker lots are crushed, never to rise again. Criticism kills us every day in parts. So if people criticize you, hurt you, or shout at you, never bother. Just remember that in every game, it's the audience that makes the noise and not the players. Thank you, and I rest my case here.
Thank you, A01. Now interjector I01 will question A01. Code I01, please.
Good evening. I am code I01. My question is to code A01. As John Wooden rightly mentioned, you can't let praise or criticism get to you. So weakness to get caught up in either one. There's only praise and no criticism, then you won't succeed in life, but you'll only go down. So do you still think that criticism should not be there?
Thank you, dear interjection. A painter once kept a painting on the street for people to criticize it, and many people did so happily. The next day, he kept the same painting with pencils and colors for the reason that if there was a fault in the painting, one could kindly correct it. That day, nobody made a dot on that painting. Let me tell you that there is a vast difference between advising somebody and criticizing somebody. It is written in our ancient Puranas to never criticize. Criticism is, in fact, nothing but a silent massacre in the name of progress. Criticism is a question that is out of service. And hence, I believe that criticism does not make us strong. In fact, it makes us weak. Thank you.
Thank you. Here is an invitation for code F02 to take the floor. Code F02, please.
The world-famous writer Albert Hubbard once aptly said, "The final proof of greatness lies in being able to endure criticism without resentment." Good evening to the respectable jury and my worthy opponents. I, code F02, am strongly in favor of the motion. Criticism makes one strong. To improve and not improvise. To move forward in life and not stay stone still. And to be the best versions of ourselves. Working on our mistakes is necessary. Criticism apparently goes a long way. It's kind of a whack on the side of the head. And how exactly do my mates plan on finding their mistakes in the first place?
By the thoughtless approval of the masses? Or with the help of clear-cut critiques who call out on your mistakes for your betterment, of course. If someone feels afraid to tell you honest criticism, then you're never going to improve. I agree that constant criticism makes you feel bad about yourself. But in majority of cases, I repeat, in majority of cases, criticism is there to push you for improvement, to make sure that creativity isn't a dictatorship, but an ongoing discussion. My worthy opponents, let me drive home the point that criticism pushes you to rethink, adjust, and try again. Let's take the example of the mega famous and wealthy who need to know that they are not perfect. A world without criticism would do terrible things to a famous person's ego. It helps them stay grounded. Let's take the example of the dear disputants. Dust cannot be seen in the dark. And I would like to reiterate here that criticism helps us stay grounded. It needs my counterparts. History is replete with people who have made it big in the face of criticism. Van Gogh, the famous painter, was criticized for his sloppy brushstrokes that were crude. But that did not deter him from paving a new way of art. Our very own Amitabh Bachchan was criticized heavily for his voice at All India Radio. But just look at where he is today. Now imagine if people were allowed to just spunk out whatever they liked without a hint of criticism. They would go around believing that everything they do is glorious. And while that might be good for their self-esteem, their work would suffer as a result. I would like to rest my case with these pearls of wisdom. The trouble with most of us is that we would rather be ruined by praise than be saved by criticism. Thank you.
Thank you. The next interjector, code I02, will question F02. Code I02, please.
Good evening. I am code I02 and my question is for code F02. Criticism entails finding fault with what others have done under the pretext of helping them improve their work. Don't you think that it not only bruises the receiver's self-worth, but also makes the critic presumptuous? I am more concerned about the critic losing his humility while criticizing.
Madam Interjector, I guess you didn't hear me when I said that criticism is just like a bitter medicine. It has its adverse effects. A bitter medicine makes us feel weaker for a moment. It is difficult to swallow. But ultimately, criticism is the only silver lining. It is the only cure that's there. J.K. Rowling, for that matter. Madam Interjector, do you know that she was pointed out of the room? She was told that her childish fantasies won't ever inspire. But ask anyone today, how do they want to escape reality? And I bet the answer will be a train to Hogwarts. Criticism is there for correction and rectification. Thank you.
Thank you. Now code A02 would get to oppose the motion. Code A02.
Let me do it. No, not that way. Come on. My goodness. Will you ever grow up? God only knows what happens to the child when we are gone. Good evening, jury members and fellow debaters. The House believes that criticism makes one strong, and I, quote A02, strongly oppose the motion. Merriam-Webster defines criticism as the act of saying that something or someone is bad. The very premise of my worthy opponents is really preposterous and outlandish. If criticism makes you stronger, does appreciation weaker as a logical corollary? Fantastic, isn't it? Benjamin Franklin aptly remarked that any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do. Are you one of them? Criticism per se can never ever have any positive impact. And by the way, what type of criticism are we really talking about? Is it aesthetic criticism? Or logical, factual, positive, negative, constructive, destructive, theoretical, practical, inductive, deductive, moral, or radical? Shalya, the charioteer of Karna, kept praising Arjun's archery skills, thereby demotivating Karna. The story of the swan and the crow, Arjun excelled only due to Lord Krishna's constant motivation, whereas Karna fumbled due to Shalya's scathing criticism in Mahabharata. Constant nagging and nudging will push anyone against the wall, however brave and confident one may be. Avoidance, anxiety, depression, slumped shoulders, downcast eyes are some of the telltale signs. Critics probably have a bloated self-image, thus appointing themselves as the ultimate judge of everything. Their constant droning and drumming stem from their need to assert their sense of superiority, which in reality is their inferiority complex in reverse. In the Solomon Islands, the tribals don't cut down a tree, they surround the tree and criticize, condemn, curse, denounce, deplore, and disparage it for hours every day. The living tree dries up and becomes dead. Think a dozen times before criticizing someone you love, because the power of subconscious is a million times more than that of the conscious. Watch out for the joy stealers with a judgmental attitude. Don't let those venomous fangs of poisonous people affect you and stop you from being you. Always remember, a child who lives with criticism learns to condemn. Alexander Pope subtly remarks, know then thyself, presume not God to scan. The proper study of mankind is man. Thank you.
Thank you. Interjector code I02 to question A02. Code I02.
Good evening. I am code I02 and my question is for code A02. If you think that feedback in the form of criticism can give a blow to your self-esteem, aren't you being egoistic, holding your ego sacrosanct? If this be the case, how will you ever redress your inadequacies? I mean, haven't you virtually shut the door to improvement?
Madam Interjector, by disapproving criticism, I don't close the door to improvement. Criticism is bad, Madam Interjector. Egoistic is not realistic, is not related to criticism. Criticism is just like a poison, Madam Interjector. It will never help you improve. Merriam-Webster defines criticism as the act of saying that something or someone is bad. How can you even expect that particular word, which has a negative definition, to even improve you? Madam Interjector, criticism is like a poison. Can you create a safe poison, Madam Interjector? No, you can't. The very idea of positive and constructive criticism that improves you is as oxymoronic as the idea of a safe poison. Thank you.
Thank you. Code F03 to put views for the motion. Code F03.
Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting the same battle. Quoted by Plato. Good evening, honorable members of the jury, esteemed audience, and my worthy opponents. I, code F03, stand wholeheartedly for the motion. Criticism makes one strong. Criticism creates anger and defensiveness on the part of the person criticized. The critics seek not to improve, but to raise their own self-respect at the expense of another to establish their superiority. The criticism decreases self-esteem on the point of making us feel worthless. Okay, these are the usual lines of arguments by my friends, those who speak against the motion. Yes, we are left with a paradox, but what matters the most is to grow beyond criticisms and appreciations. I mean, we should not be carried away by them. If we worry about criticisms, we make it double. We should be mindful about our strengths, else we will be gradually driven into a situation that of temple elephants. When we are competing with ourselves, when we are focused on maximizing our potential, when we want to strengthen our intrinsic motivation to face the adversities that lay on our path, we would hear only what we want to hear. We will pick the idea that provides a unique perspective, the ones that steer us in the right direction towards realizing a goal. Culture-based criticisms are really serious. They can bind a person in his cultural chains. Very true. But there is always something to be proud of in every culture. Culture is very much in our DNA, and it's also like our DNA. We inherit genes of exceptional traits along with disease genes. We can always choose to improve or ignore the criticisms based on its merits and intention. Having established that we cannot control everything, the only thing that we can truly control is being the best that we can be. I wish to seal the argument with a story that would linger on. Once, a shoe company sent two salesmen to Africa to determine the market potential for their products. Both of them completed the survey of the target market and sent messages to their office. No one here wears any shoes. There's no market for us. I'm coming home, was the report by the first. No one here wears any shoes. There's a huge market for us. Send inventory fast, was the report by the other. The point of the story is that our perspective influences our behavior. If we feel we cannot change the situation, we act one way. On the other hand, if we see the world as full of opportunities, we act differently. This very much applies to criticisms as well. Sometimes they throw a gestaltic high experience at us. Criticism makes one strong. Thank you.
Thank you. Interjector I03 to put forward the queries to F03. Code I03, please.
Good evening. I am code I03, and my question goes to code F03. You should not criticize what you don't understand. My friend, you have never experienced these emotions. If you think that criticism helps people by telling them their drawbacks, then this is your misunderstanding. Let me tell you, when you throw negative energy, you actually hurt other people. This unethical practice remains only to justify the law, survival of the fittest, which I feel is completely illogical. I'm sorry, but I guess you took the topic wrong. You were not to defend criticism, but to prove that it makes one strong. Please throw light on how this unethical practice makes someone strong. Thank you.
I'm afraid the interjector is talking about the criticisms that are made with an ulterior motive. We should simply ignore such fallacious attacks. Perhaps one gets demotivated by constant criticisms. Yes, but it drives home a message that we need to revisit our actions and strategies with a new perspective. Let me remind you about the mother of all criticisms that the world is familiar with. Oogway is a tireless turtle of unparalleled prescience and wisdom in the film Kung Fu Panda. Tai Lung desperately wanted the title The Kung Fu Warrior and the scroll to know the secret in it. Oogway rejected Tai Lung, saying he had darkness within him. We know Tai Lung was the greatest Kung Fu exponent and proved his leadership with a team of furious spies. However, Tai Lung failed to have a gestalt perspective of Oogway's criticisms. Actually, Oogway turned Tai Lung down because he realized that Tai Lung would never be satisfied with the idea of the scroll that there are no secret ingredients. The truth is that the establishment machinery always seeks for a cog in the wheel. It rightfully frees the truly passionate to not to get choked in its grand scheme of things. Instead, it provides an opportunity to actualize oneself beyond good and bad for the whole of humanity to benefit. It's all in our attitude. Criticism makes one strong, certainly helps us maintain a positive self-image and self-worth. Criticism makes one strong.
Thank you. Now to oppose the motion, I invite A03 to the podium. A03.
Good evening, honorable members of the jury, esteemed audience, and my worthy opponents. I, code A03, stand wholeheartedly against the motion. Criticism makes one strong. First, let me start with a story. A young artist put his creation at a busy street crossing, and just down below, a board which read, "I have painted this piece. Since I am new to this profession, I might have committed some mistakes in my strokes. Please put a cross whenever you see a mistake." When he came back in the evening to collect his painting, he was completely shattered to see that the whole canvas was filled with crosses. And some people had even written their comments on the painting. Disheartened and broken completely, he ran to his master's place and burst into tears. This young artist was breathing heavily, and his master heard him saying, "I am useless. And if this is what I have learned to paint, I am not worth becoming a painter. People have rejected me completely. I feel like dying. So now let me come to the topic. Although both forms are challenging your ideas, character, or ability, when someone is giving destructive criticism, it can hurt your pride and have negative effects on your self-esteem and confidence. Destructive criticism can in some cases lead to anger or aggression. Most psychiatrists agree that criticism led people to change their behavior and character. It creates anger and defensiveness on the part of the person criticized. Communication between the parties is lacked and positive relationships are impeded. Criticism is interpreted as harsh, hostile, or excessive may harm a person's well-being. Researchers believe that some individuals were more sensitive to criticism than others due to cognitive biases that led them to interpret ambitious information negatively rather than neutrally or positively. Criticism, it can turn into a virus. Dealing with depression, anxiety, stress, mental exhaustion, or any other mental illness can take a toll on your sense of self. It is also a tough tackle due to the stigma of mental illness. Criticism, it can hurt your pride and have negative effects on your self-esteem and confidence. And some of the other effects of criticism are inferiority complex development, guilty to participate in social gatherings, intellectual skills, analyzing capacity, and problem-solving ability decreases, feels demotivated, avoids peer group, feeling lonely, and they do not like to have a family time. So now, let me conclude the story. The master smiled and suggested, "My son, I will prove that you are a great artist and have learned flawless painting. Do as I say without questioning. It will work." The young artist reluctantly denied and was broken. I rest my case.
Thank you. Now interjector code I03 will question A03. Code I03, please.
Good evening. I am code I03. My question goes to code A03. My friend, can you tell me the difference between every stroke of the wind, every molecule of water? Absolutely not. Therefore, criticism is a law of nature. Even Mother Nature filters the best from the rest. It is the destiny of the weak to be devoured by the strong. For your information, the greatest threat to freedom is the absence of criticism. So if, for example, a government cannot flourish without an opposition, how can an individual blossom without criticism? Let me remind you, my dear opponent, that the topic is criticism, the four-syllable word, criticism, and not negative criticism. Please elaborate and prove how you were not wrong. Thank you.
A sensitivity to criticism may lead an individual to be negatively impacted by any criticism, even when that criticism is indeed to be helpful. Experiencing anxiety, depression, anger, shame, or extreme defensiveness when faced with criticism may indicate a high level of sensitivity. Do you know, studies have investigated the effect of criticism on brain function. Individuals that score high perceived criticism show increased limbic reactivity and decreased cognitive regularity activity during the process of criticism. So, criticism is something which is deliberately malicious and hurtful. Criticism is the toxic habit that can slowly ruin your life. Criticism is so dangerous because it wounds a person's precious pride and hurt a sense of importance. People who are constantly criticized by others have poorer health and higher risk of early death. Criticism. People always interpret negatively. Criticism means negativity. Human psychology always interpret negatively. Therefore, I am so sure criticism makes one weak.
Thank you. Next to come forward will be code F04 to speak for the motion. Code F04, please.
The moment we hear the words of critique, our heartbeat quickens.
and our mind begins to race. First, in search of a rejoinder to the assault launched on our perceived self-image, and then for a retort to rationalize whatever actions are under the scanner of critics. That is the common behavior that we all find ourselves ensnared in. But take heart, my friends, criticism isn't all that debilitating. In fact, constructive feedback reminds us that it's fine to have flaws and that imperfection is part of being human. My warm greetings to all the people virtually present with us. I am code F04 and I strongly support the motion criticism makes one strong. In my opinion, our learning depends on how we receive and perceive criticism dished out by the critic. Let's not assume that every critic is a hater who only means to slight us by being condescending to us. To be honest, there are scores of things worth critiquing out there. But not everyone takes out time to do that. Why? That's because they don't feel that those things are worth their attention at all. We can take a cue from the stalwart Ratan Tata's life, who in an interview revealed how he faced vicious criticism when he took over as the chairman of the Tata Group after Mr. J.R.D. Tata. He was called a wrong choice, while his mentor was accused of nepotism. The world would not have known this legendary figure if he would have succumbed to criticism. Then there are some other prominent figures of the world today, from Oprah Winfrey to Steve Jobs to Lady Gaga. All of them have large groups of detractors. Winston Churchill also said, "You have enemies? Good. That means you have stood up for something sometime in your life." Henceforth, we can say that dealing with criticism positively is an important life skill. Learn to use criticism as a fuel, and you will never run out of energy. I vouch for that. Walt Disney, too, began his career from being fired by a newspaper for not being creative enough. Later, his Mickey Mouse cartoons were rejected because they were deemed to be too scary for women. Thankfully, we have the Disney company today because Walt chose to use criticism to better himself in his field. The quote, "I love it when people doubt me. It makes me work harder to prove them wrong," justifies my proposition. My advice to you, accept both compliments and criticism, as it takes both the sun and the rain for a flower to grow. With these words, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you. Interjector I04 will question F04 now. Code I04.
Good evening. My code is I04 and my question is to F04. Criticism is constructive as stated by my fellow debater. But then what about those 17% of citizens who die every year due to constant criticism? Criticism has always led to inferiority complex. It seems as if you're being scrutinized under a magnifying glass every time. Madam Speaker, when you are inclined to offer a feedback, just pause and ask yourself first. If you would feel defensive, anyone else would too. How would you face the subsequent encounters?
Well, I believe most of us are inclined to begrudge people who criticize us. Unfortunately, in the heat of the moment, we react with defensiveness or anger, or even worse, we end up attacking the person giving us feedback. But the truth is, we need to get over it. We need to understand that there is value in constructive criticism. How else would we identify our weaknesses and become more successful? My dear interjector, if you only hear compliments and never hear criticism, it will hamper your growth. Think of criticism as separating wheat from chaff. Take what's useful, use it for your growth, leave the rest and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have code A04 to oppose the motion. Code A04, please.
Would you mind if I brushed off your carefully thought ideas and dismissed your work as sloppy, all wrapped in the guise of constructive criticism? My dear audience, I'm sure this question would spur you to wonder if it is justifiable to shatter someone's elan just because you think you're equipped to judge them. Good evening, honorable judges, esteemed audience, and my fellow opponents. I am code number A04 and I stand in the house against the motion criticism makes one strong. A person put in the advantaged position of having the opportunity of criticizing others defends it as a way of giving them feedback. But in actual practice, he is only condescending and appraising his self-worth by acting superior to him. No matter how much we sugarcoat criticism, it simply casts a spell of doom on the recipient's morale. He is left wondering if he is capable of being entrusted with any responsible job. Not only this, criticism also plays havoc with the rapport that one may have painstakingly built with the critic through copious emotional investments. When somebody condemns you, disapproves of you, rejects you, and withdraws his confidence from you, it can be extremely debilitating. Not only will this criticism gnaw at your self-confidence, it will offend you and put you on the defensive to justify your behavior. Let me go to the length of saying that all criticism is devastating. To call any criticism constructive is just wishful thinking. My dear opponents, I would like you to visualize a sight, a small child and an excellent art teacher. The child draws lines and images which are continuously critiqued by the teacher. Do you think it will enhance the child's drawing prowess? No, it will only serve to obliterate his flooding interest in the art. It will strike a blow to his esteem, and his hands will shake at the mere thought of holding a brush again. Again, it is sheer criticism on the part of parents of children not doing well academically or not fulfilling their dream projects that have led to many youngsters taking the dire step. Instead, if these very children had been motivated in achieving small successes, they would have overcome their fears and conquered the world. Actually, critical people are certainly smart enough to figure out that criticism doesn't work. So why do they keep doing it? Criticism is coercive and it devalues the bearer. My fellow speakers, there is no evidence logical enough to prove that criticism makes one strong. It is not criticism. It is the willpower and determination to ignore criticism that makes one resilient. Judging others is a reflection of who we are and what we are unhappy with. And criticism hardly creates a more positive influence than the negative. So, my fellow debaters, be generous with praise, but cautious with criticism. Be a motivator. The world has plenty of critics already. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, at the end of the competition, I invite interjector I04 to question A04. Code I04, please.
My code is I04 and my question is to A04. According to Mr. Speaker, criticism obstructs the trajectory growth of a personality. But there have been instances where people have sailed through the ocean of scathing criticism and reached the pinnacle of success. You can take Ratan Tata. He was branded as the wrong choice, but that did not deter him. Criticism is there to mold you as a diamond and not just an imitation. So, Mr. Speaker, how can you claim that it diminishes the trajectory growth of a personality?
As I said earlier, criticism hardly creates a more positive influence than the negative. I feel that more often it highlights the obvious shortcomings, thereby making the not so obvious strengths more subdued. Most psychologists agree that criticism does not lead people to change their behavior. Instead, it creates anger and defensiveness on part of the person being criticized. Note that when criticism is constant, it may actually be a form of emotional abuse. Not all people have the mental strength and willpower to brush off criticism. My dear interjector, when you throw negative energy at someone, you are hurting him or her, whether you realize it or not. At the same time, you are throwing negative energy out into the universe for yourself. What you put out is what you get back. Thank you.
Thank you. It is said that the smart way to keep yourself alert is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion, but have very lively debate within that spectrum. That's precisely what our passionate debaters did today. All of them presented critical and dissident views eloquently, while remaining gracious. We are thankful to the enthusiastic young speakers who took the floor with zeal and conviction. Just as treasures are uncovered from the earth, virtue appears from good deeds, and wisdom appears from listening to benevolent words. To walk safely through the maze of life, one needs the light of wisdom and guidance of elders. To guide and encourage all the extraordinarily talented participants, I would like to invite our esteemed judges to address us all. First of all, I invite Ms. Rakhi Thakur to enrich us with her pearls of wisdom. Please, ma'am. Rakhi, ma'am, please enrich us with your pearls of wisdom. Enlighten us, please.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you now.
Yes, good evening to all of you. I was saying that I have always been a huge fan of debates. And what joy it is to see our young erudite speakers speak on a topic that concerns all of us. It's really amazing to see how much effort you all have put into the research, which is very important for any debate, and how much effort has been put into making it a persuasive debate. I really congratulate you all. A few words that I would like to speak here about the nature of debate. It's sad that our teachers, our children do not have many good role models these days. I'm really, I feel for the children because the kind of debates which are happening around us, they are not giving us much in terms of knowledge, or they are not adding to, our personality. However, there are still some people. I request all of these children to go into depth if you are looking for some inspiration. Oxford Union debate and the famous speech there by Shashi Tharoor is one such example. So please make sure that you choose your role models with care. No aggression. As they say, when you are speaking, do not raise your voice, raise the level of your argument. Being aggressive or being loud has never been accepted as something that will win you more people. This is actually, it shows our desperation only to be liked, to be heard. But you will be heard more if you are calm, if you are composed, and if your content, your argument is persuasive. I'm very sure that our children will definitely do better when we meet next. I'm really impressed with your performance today, and I congratulate you one more time. Thank you.
Thanks a million, ma'am. Next, I invite Dr. Hazel Verbena to share her valuable thoughts with us. Please, ma'am.
Good evening, eminent judges and my dear students. It's indeed my great pleasure to be in this platform as one of the judges. And I really appreciate all the students for taking such a wonderful effort in presenting their views. Today's generation, it's very much in need that they have to learn the art of persuasion. As said by Rakhi ma'am, it is not enough that we just speak out our voices or just express our views through our body language, but it is very much necessary that we have been taught to express our views in which people take it into the depth of their heart. And I really appreciate the effort taken by each one of the students because every point that they expressed was very cohesive and it was very much connected and logically connected. And I would really appreciate the teachers or the parents who have taken so much of pains in just molding them in such a way. Criticism is one of the greatest and one of the most important and evident topics in the present scenario. It is very much necessary that students are given the right action or the right path in which they have to be criticized and not to be criticized. Above all, I wish the students all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Ms. Neeta Saxena to inspire the participants with her words. Please, ma'am.
Thank you. A very good evening to all. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Takshila Educational Society for having me here. It was indeed a great pleasure to hear each child display such confidence, speak with such conviction. I would like to address the children and tell them that, my dear children, each one of you was amazing, and it was an absolute delight to see you speak, argue, and put forward your point. Success, my children, is not about winning. Success is about being able to give your 100% and put your best foot forward. And I feel that each one of you today was absolutely amazing, confident, and undebatable. Keep up the hard work. And I would also like to appreciate the teachers who must have put in a lot of hard work. So what we get to see today is not only what the children put forward, but also what the teachers have helped them. Once again, thank you, all of you, for the beautiful performance. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Finally, I call upon Ms. Priya Manish Kumar to enlighten the audience with her sagacious words. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, Harmeet ma'am. Good evening, my fellow judges, teachers, and my dear students. It is an honor and a privilege to be part of Open Mic, the debate competition, a battle of oratory skills. It really actually looked like a battle, but having taught communication for about 22 years, this is one thing that Rakhi ma'am has also mentioned, and I would like to reiterate it, that debate is not about being very loud. Debate is about logical arguments, to put forth your point. And that was seen. I saw that, and I was very happy because the students are from class 9 and 10, very young and still learning. Yet I found some of you to be really very wise. And that really gladdens my heart, that youngsters at this age are so understanding and so wise, and most importantly, so empathetic. They're not just intelligent. They're also developing a very, very important and required skill, which is empathy. Debate is not just about language skills and oratory capabilities. Debate is also it's also about learning how to argue, analyze the points, and put forward your argument in a most justifiable manner, which I'm very happy to see that it was there here. And there's one thing that really amazed me, and which has really the interjectors. There was one interjector for both for and against. So this one person is forced to see the argument from both sides of the coin. This person is asking, this person is questioning for the motion, and the same person is questioning against the motion. So this interjector is forced to see the argument from both sides of the coin, which is really increasing their understanding of the topic, of the idea, and their sense of understanding. I mean, the sense of understanding their balance. They're learning how to balance ideas. And this is a great initiative taken by Takshila and Educational Society and Delhi Public School. The developing the sense of balance of understanding, that your ability to see an idea from both the positive as well as the negative perspective. And I really kudos to the teachers and the organizers for this idea, for developing students in this manner. We don't see this kind of development in most of the students. This is something that has really made me very happy. It amazed me and it made me really happy, especially when I see that the students belong to standard 9 and 10. They're very young and they're still learning. And I've seen that level of wisdom is really high. It is going to be very difficult to be judging this group. Oh, for me, all of them are excellent. All of them have done wonderfully well. So I really don't know whom to give less marks. They are all winners. All of you students, you are winners in my opinion. But somehow I'll have to find a manner in which I'll award marks to you. But before I say goodbye, let me reiterate that all of you were wonderful. You spoke very well. You were very confident. You have extremely good command on the language. You were very clear, except for one or two here and there, but most of you had clarity in your expressions, in your ideas, in your arguments, in your pronunciations. It was a wonderful, wonderful performance. Thank you very much. And I was very happy to attend this. Thank you once again.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all for your words of wisdom. I'm sure that our students will benefit immensely from them. Let me now introduce you to all the articulate speakers of today. From DPS Patna, we have Agrima Nath, Rian Roshan, Trisha Adya. From DPS Pune, we have Nitya Rajit Kumar, Gaurav Mundra, Krishnang Gupta. DPS Ludhiana, we have Sara Khanna, Shaurya Ghai, and Shreya Goenka. From DPS Coimbatore, we have Nitya Shri, S. Neha Shri, and Gabriel Stephen E. But all good things come to an end. So this brilliant meet should conclude too. We'll disperse, but we shall now be in possession of warm memories and rich learning experiences. I take this opportunity to extend my earnest thanks to our judges for sparing their invaluable time to inspire us with their presence and profound words. I also thank all the parents for their steadfast support that is reputed to be unequivocal in every respect. I would be remiss in my duty if I didn't mention the diligent efforts of all the participants who brought forth for us some divergent views on the topic and agreed to disagree gracefully. And of course, deserving of my thanks are those students who tried their best to be a part of this contest, but missed it by a whisker. I'm sure we'll watch them scintillate on the stage next time. Thanks one and all. The results of the competition will be published on the school website shortly. Competition teaches us big lessons. It drives us to be the best we can be. The most striking part of competition is that through it we discover what we are capable of and how much more we can do than we ever believed possible. And I earnestly hope that we keep meeting on such platforms to bring out the best of each other. With this, I, your host for the day, take your leave and wish you a lively and vibrant evening. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.